My mum always said that Jo talks more if you put her in a car. So I'm just driving home. Tigger and I did a day today about relationships across the neurodivide. We talked about family relationships where different members of one family have different neurotypes. We talked about friendships and how to bridge the neurodivide and form friendships. And we talked about partner relationships where one partner is neurodivergent and the other partner is not. And at various points today, Tigger and I were reflecting on our own internalized ableism, that when we've met pinch points in relationships, in friendships, in these situations, that we always assume it's our fault, that we always feel that we are to blame, and that is a reflection that we have been taught, that the way that we think and feel and act and our being is wrong. And so that's our experience of internalized ableism, and that came up in various formats throughout the day. But right at the end of the day, a lady put her hand up and asked a question, and it was clearly a question that was full of emotion. And she described how she lives with an autistic husband and she has an autistic son, and she has to adjust the way she behaves a lot in order to meet their needs and in order for them to feel safe in their house and for the home environment to be calm and negotiated between these different neurotypes. And her question was, how come it's always me that has to change? And you think there's a kind of unfairness in that why would it always be, you know, when they're finding the home environment difficult, why is it always on her to change that? And it did seem very unfair, and it did seem very kind of lonely for her. And I got into the car and I realised what the answer is. And I think I can explain it with a parallel in another situation, because what it comes down to is the power balance between two groups. So if you think about racism, have you heard people say racism is a white man's problem? That's true, you know. Racism comes about because of power imbalance between races. You know, the white people have held the power and have held the power for centuries now, and have used the holding of that power in all manner of abusive ways. And whilst people of colour, people from global majority backgrounds can argue against that, can, you know, educate others, can speak about their experience, those inherent imbalances of power only change when the white people surrender the power that they have, or when white people are willing to learn and listen and change. And I am obviously speaking as a white person, and I don't consider myself to be racist. I don't consider that I am perpetrating racism, but I am a part of that privileged group. I do benefit from the power structures that privilege me over other people, and unless I am actively doing something to counter that, then I am a part of systemic racism. And I could tell you what I do to counter that, but this is not meant to be about me defending my white privilege. The point is, in the conversation across the neurodivide, there is a group that is the dominant group. There is a group that holds all the power, and this imbalance of power only changes when that group changes. And so in a way, yes, it is always on her because she is the neurotypical one. But in a future, let's say when that future happens, let's be optimistic, where that power is not just held by one group, where it is shared, in that future, her husband wouldn't have to go out to work in an environment that presumes a neurotype he doesn't own. Her son wouldn't have to go to a school and go through an education system that presumes a neurotype he doesn't own. They wouldn't be living in a house that is built on the presumption of a neurotype they don't own. And so in a future where that power balance is more equal, her son and her husband would probably have far fewer needs to have their, you know, their sensory needs met and their need for regulation in the privacy of their own home and all of that. So there would be less pressure on her in that future, just as there would be less pressure on them in that future. And at the moment, the pressure is on neurotypical people to change, on neurotypical people to up their understanding, on neurotypical people to be willing to surrender some of the systems and beliefs that they have held true and dear for centuries, in the same way that racism changes when white people relinquish those power structures and things like that. And when that happens, if that happens, then ultimately it would be an equal negotiation across the neurodivide, about her husband giving a bit and her giving a bit, her son understanding a bit of her needs and her understanding a bit of her son's needs. And hopefully within a household it is more like that. But overall, no. It's on the non-autistic, the non-ADHD, the non-neurodivergent population to change.